courtesy Kenya Airways, the pride of Africa. So, a few weeks ago, maybe last week, Emgwen, Member of Parliament, Kosgey, proposed that we need to put a ceiling, a cap on this rising debt that we have, which is now over 5 trillion shillings, with a T, 5 trillion. He wants a cap of 6 trillion before things get out of control. We're going to talk about that and other issues. The 16% VAT tax, which they passed the bill, is now sitting in the president's office. What's going on with that? Mweshimiwa Alex Kosgey, welcome to Hot 96.
Thank you, Jeff.
Good to see you, man. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
So listen, you guys, MPs, you passed this bill, first of all, the 16% VAT, saying, you know what, this thing is going to kill us. It's going to hurt us. Please, let's not do it. And then Treasury Secretary Henry Rotich ignores you guys and says, you know what, we're going ahead with that. Well, isn't that kind of a slap in the face?
Well, I wouldn't want to say that. What it is happening is their argument is that we have not finished the process. And what we want to say as a parliament is the process can conclude with either the president's assenting to what has been passed already, or if he has objections or issues, to return them back to parliament as quickly as possible. And I hope at that point, if that were to happen, we could reach a consensus.
But in the meantime, when Nanchi are struggling, you know that, they're struggling out there. I mean, it's almost unbearable. Fuel at 128, and then everything else goes up. Matatu fares, food, vegetables, everything goes up.
Yes, and that's the most unfortunate thing. What we would hope is, instead of the Treasury trying to find ways to increase the taxation, what they should instead be trying to do is to see how to reduce their own costs. Because there has been this argument that the Kenyans have to tighten their belt. But we would like to see also what is the government doing to tighten its own belt, and what are they doing to try and reduce their expenditure. Because that is actually the key problem underlying everything.
Yeah. Bottom line, what would you like to see done right now?
Well, what I would like to see done at the moment is A, a stop to borrowing. B, to see how the government could try and reduce its own costs, because that's the main problem, to try and balance their budgets. And then C, more support for the private sector. Yeah. Because the private sector is actually what's going to drive this economy forward.
You say reduce borrowing. The president just came back from Washington, D.C. He just came back from China, bearing what we probably are, lots and lots of goodies, lots of borrowing. That's gonna put a dent or add more to the debt of this country.
Yes, and I think actually it's unfortunate we equate borrowing with goodies. There's nothing goody about borrowing.
Absolutely. Look, China is willing to give us money. They're willing to throw money at us at very low interest rates. And it's very attractive for the most part. But maybe what we don't realize is we're going to be paying these debts for generations.
Yes. I think it's even instructive that recently, when they were in China, the Chinese were not actually as willing to proceed on with the further financing of the railway to Kisumu until they were given a clear repayment plan of how the government intends to pay this. And that's actually now a helpful hint to try and see that they recognize that our borrowing is now actually getting out of hand. And we hope that as we move forward, we can be a bit more responsible about what loans we take, what loans we choose not to take. Because just because somebody is willing to give you a loan does not mean you should necessarily take the loan.
Yeah. At the same time, China announced that they were giving Africa $60 billion. $60 billion.
Yes.
I mean, who would say no to something like that?
Well, as I said, just because somebody is willing to give you something doesn't mean that you immediately should take it. And at the moment, what we should be really concerned about also is our sovereignty. Because we are still a sovereign country. We wouldn't want to have a situation where either the Chinese are dictating how we run our government, or as it seems to be the case at the moment, the IMF as well seem to be dictating how to run the country. Ultimately, we as a country, whether it be in the parliament, whether it be in the treasury, whether it be at the president level, should be the ones making the ultimate decisions of what to do as we move forward.
Do you think, Mweshimiwa, that we are mortgaging our futures to our children? Are we mortgaging this country completely to foreigners?
That's a bit extreme. I don't want to go too far. The thing is, we have not yet reached we are at a serious level, but we are still at a point where we could sit back, take a step back, and make the right decision for the future, which is what I hope could happen now.
Yeah, you were saying earlier on, our debt is what, 5.1 trillion?
Yes, our debt at the moment is 5.1 trillion. It means every Kenyan man, woman, and child at the moment owes about 120,000 shillings. So even a baby being born today, tomorrow, in any hospital, arrives in this world immediately with a debt of 120,000 shillings.
Goodness gracious me. And putting a ceiling, how do you propose to do that? A ceiling of 6 trillion?
Well, the bill is an amendment to another law, the Public Finance Management Act. And that amendment, the law at the moment does not specify a specific amount. It gives leeway to the Treasury to decide how to go about this. The point at the moment is to amend the law so that there is a clear and substantive a figure, an amount in the law, which would prevent the Treasury from going beyond that. And then secondly, the bill also requires the Treasury to always come to Parliament whenever they wish to propose to take a loan, and to give Parliament a clear repayment plan of how they intend or what they envision will happen in future that will allow them to raise revenue to pay those loans.
Yeah. Front page in the Standard says, why Kenya is damned over IMF ultimatum. Then it goes on to say, with 4 days left, Kenya faces the dilemma of yielding to public pressure on the 16% fuel tax or sticking to the lender, IMF's, 100 billion shilling deal. Does that put us between a rock and a hard place, Mheshimiwa?
Possibly, yes. We're already in a very difficult position. But in this difficult position, I think we should make the right decision. The IMF does not have a very good record of advising African countries or even South American countries. In the past, they have caused a lot of problems in other countries. And we have no reason to believe that what they are advising us is the right thing. If we continue with this VAT on fuel, all we'll be doing is making Kenyans suffer more, make Kenya a much less attractive place to do business, make it much harder for even the existing business to grow, to create jobs, to help people. So we have to tell the IMF at some point that with all due respect, this is not the right decision for us. We don't think that you have a good record of advising people, and we do not wish to take this advice. Please allow us to be able to make the right decisions for the people as we see so.
Yeah. The article goes on to say Kenya's commitments to the IMF, right, which include 1, charge VAT on petroleum to earn 71 billion shillings. 2, remove other tax exemptions such as on milk, maize, flour, kerosene, wheat flour, and pesticides. 3, remove interest rates cap. 4, fight corruption and wastage in government offices. 5, increase economic growth by 1.5 percentage points. Ooh, I mean, these are tough measures.
You know, actually, the first thing is that the projected revenue that is supposed to be earned through this VAT assumes many things. It assumes growth in the economy, it assumes consumption continues at the current level, and it assumes that things continue on as they are. But the reality is, probably, it's going to slow down the economy. Likely, there will be changes in the way people spend and the patterns of consumption. And the reality is that in the long run, there will probably be less revenue being earned through this system.
Yeah.
It's just going to create a bigger problem for the economy, and it's not going to bring that growth that is being projected over there.
And then, of course, it'll hit the shilling very hard. Let's face it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
The shilling will slide and then, boom,
Yes.
everything's going up.
Yes.
Like I said, between a rock and a hard place. We're speaking to Emgwen, Member of Parliament, Alex Kosgey, live here on Hot 96. If you have any questions or comments, please call me 0722 20 88 20, 0734 20 88 20. We're going to take a quick break, come back, plenty more to talk about this bunge. Are you enjoying it, by the way? First time MP, are you enjoying it?
It's okay. It's actually my second term.
Oh, it's your second term?
Yes.
Oh, so you're a veteran almost?
Yes.
All right, 27 minutes past the hour, 7 o'clock. Team Clyde.
Whenever you...
Member of Parliament Alex Kosgey, 34 years old, by the way, second time MP. Are you enjoying this? I asked you this before the break. Is it fun being an MP, or would you rather be doing other things?
Well, obviously it's a privilege and a responsibility, and it's something that I take seriously. And but it's also like any other job. You just have to go through the days and try and see how to do the best that you can.
Yeah. Look, since the handshake exactly 6 months ago this past weekend, 6 months, critics say that there's basically no opposition in Parliament anymore. There's no opposition. There's nothing. Everyone agrees with everyone else, and it's all hunky-dory out there. What do you say?
Well, that may be the case, but I think it's also healthy that for a change, instead of having a lot of negative personality politics, what has actually been happening of late is a discussion about issues. And for instance, the current discussion around the economy, around the VAT on fuel, around what choices we should make as a country, I think those are very healthy discussions, very important discussions. And I think it's a welcome relief from what has been happening in the past, where there's just been unnecessary personality politics, clashes, discussions about this group, other than that group, this party, that party. Now, for a change, we're discussing about things that really matter. And hopefully, if there's any silver lining to this cloud that's happening, is that as we move forward, hopefully Kenyans will be making decisions based on what they believe will help the economy, what will they believe will help them better as they move forward. Not just because somebody's from their particular area, or they're in this party, or they're this kind of person.
For the longest time, members of Parliament have had the worst of reputation, even being referred to, I wouldn't even say this word, but as some kind of domestic animal.
Yes.
So, can you change that reputation? And I'm saying not you particularly, but your generation, because I see there is a new generation of young, smart, educated legislators coming in. Can you change that perception?
I'm not sure it's possible to change it. I mean, it is hoped that each generation will try to be more responsive to the needs of the electorate and try and do better for the electorate. But, it's a worldwide phenomenon. I mean, not just in Kenya. Nearly every country does not like its politicians. There's no country I'm aware of that actually loves the politicians.
Yeah.
So it happens. People often say politics is a dirty game, and when you do get into the mud, you're more likely to get soiled and have issues. But as I said, it is hoped that with every passing generation, more and more people will be trying to do what they can to meet the needs of the electorate.
Yeah. Cornelius Kipkemoy says, say hi to Mweshimiwa. The sad point is we borrow so much money, we misappropriate it, then wake up only when repaying it is staring at us. Then it's transferred to the poor, making the poor even poorer. It's so sad.
Absolutely.
Can we change that? I mean, look, this borrowing, can we, you're proposing a cap on our debt, but critics would argue, look, we need to borrow to develop. We need to build infrastructure. There's this super highway expressway that the president was talking to Trump or the Americans about. They're going to build. It's worth 460 billion. It's like $1 billion shillings a kilometer.
Yes. First of all, yes. First of all, it's overpriced, and it's not yet entirely clear whether it's been well thought through. Now, yes, there is a need for the government to invest in certain things to improve the economy. But what we also need to try and do is support the private sector. And by private sector, I just don't mean just a few rich people. I mean everybody, because Kenyans are actually incredibly hardworking. And there are lots of hardworking Kenyans out there who just want to do the right thing. And if given enough support, if the government was to stop harassing some people, harassing traders, harassing businessmen, and give them that support that they need, we will be able to make the strides that we need to move forward. And we will be able to actually have a balanced budget, and we'll be able to actually probably reduce our debts and probably end up in a situation where you could even have a surplus, because that's entirely possible. Currently, we can actually have one of the fastest growing economies. We're in a region where there's tremendous potential for growth. And if we just put in the right support for the private sector, we will achieve that growth.
Yeah. At the same time, this dragon we keep hearing about called corruption, hopefully now there is a concerted effort to attack this dragon. Are you Are you positive? Are you happy with what's been going on, especially with DPP and DCI, what they are doing?
Yes, I am. I welcome the fight against corruption, and I am happy with what they're doing. Though it would also be good if they were to do it in a way that is completely transparent, where everybody who has an issue is brought to book, and also that their cases are handled in a speedy fashion, not in a long drawn-out process, and we reach a conclusion. Because some cases people have felt sometimes it has almost become a little bit politicized, and there have been cases where people have complained that this might be targeting this person or that person, and we wouldn't want an impression to be created that this is a targeted thing. It has to be felt that it's a transparent, across the board, and is making progress as well. We also need to see results.
Absolutely. Precious Purity saying, "Hi Jeff, please ask Mheshimiwa Alex where he went to school. Iyo kizungu sio ya kawaida." Asking for a friend. Go on, man. You got fans out there.
Asante. No, Swahili ni ano. Kizungu ni kawaida. That's in school in the UK.
Okay. Look, would you recommend this to your generation? You know, I'm sure you speak to a lot of young people, or people your generation. Would you recommend, hey man, you know, if you're serious about making a change or about being a legislator, stand up, run, make a run for it?
No, yes, absolutely. In fact, one of the best things that has happened with the new constitution is that a lot of people have felt the need and felt empowered enough to make a decision to say if they wish to stand. And that's very encouraging because it shows people are taking an active interest in governance, which is encouraging. And so I would definitely encourage anybody out there who is interested to come out there and make their case and see what they can do.
Absolutely. Kipleting Collins says, Honorable Alex Kosgey is a great man. He comes from Nandi, Kip Koror, my home area. What are his suggestions on the idea of coming up with a community radio as proposed by Governor Sang of Nandi?
Yes, actually, Koror is my home. Yes, surprised. Thank you. Community radio in that area of Nandi would work very well, and it would be something which would actually give the youth something to do. It has different advantages for the local people and the local area, and yeah, so definitely I would definitely be on board on that. And it's one area which we would hope the CAK would give more licenses to, because I know there are different areas which have been pressurizing for community radios. And I hope that they could actually eventually be able to get one.
Yeah. Moses Kipngetich is asking, hi to Mheshimiwa, is asking, now that there's a 16% VAT on petroleum products, by the way, if the president assents to the bill, right, that you all passed, what happened? Will they just disregard the 60? What's been happening, what the Treasury Secretary Rotich said, you know, fuel prices were at 128. Would they go back to 101 or whatever they were?
Well, it is hope, because if he assents to the bill, then there is no VAT, and therefore, hopefully, then the prices would go back.
Would that happen immediately? Because you know how people rush to court, and they're good to rush to court here.
Again, that's an unknown. I can't speak on a hypothetical. You cannot know who will go to court or who will do what, but you hope that we will be able to revert back to the lower prices as quickly as possible.
Yeah. In the meantime, someone would have made a lot of money in between. Bottom line, or rather, finally, Mheshimiwa, your thoughts moving forward this country. Are we in a good place right now? Are we staring at tough times ahead?
We are in a delicate place. If we make the right decisions at this point, we could have a bright future. But if some unfortunate decisions continue being pushed through, then there would be problems ahead. And the hope is that during this period where we are able to have an honest discourse, we just hope that the pressure from the public and also members of parliament and other people will be able to create a consensus such that the Treasury, the Executive, the Legislature, even the Judiciary could work in concert to try and create a good economy, and we should create jobs for people.
Yeah.
And we can work together for moving better.
Before I let you go, I want you to listen to this soundbite saying tax rates is the biggest problem in Africa. Just take a listen.
Idea, but it won't help. It'll just.
In dire predictions there, huh?
Yeah. Actually, interestingly, I've seen that video has been trending. It's actually from the last season of The West Wing.
Correct.
And it's a very interesting, nothing puts it clearly and in context like Hollywood. But everything that he says to some extent is applicable to us, because we need to try and reduce our taxes. We need to try and reduce the burdens that we're giving the people. As I said earlier, the private sector needs to be supported, not just a few people, but all the 190 who are working, whether it be even a small trader, a small businessman, because those are the people who can drive growth forward. And if you keep taxing them, you keep putting them, make their lives harder, it makes it much more difficult to achieve the growth that we need. Even, as I say, just as a small example, the government is also adding VAT and taxes on pesticides, on animal feed, and other things, which are going to have a very negative impact on agriculture, which affects a lot of people. And at the moment, agriculture had been one of the biggest parts of the economy, but it's actually now reeling under this debt of taxation. So what we need is to reduce the taxes, give those people who are working out there the help that they need, and they will then be able to be prosperous. That would then increase the potential revenue that the KRA could get in future, and it'll have a better impact on the economy. Our economy now will grow. So, although it's counterintuitive, you would hope that KRA would realize that if they could reduce taxes, it would actually result in more revenue for them in future. And this increase of taxes that they want to do now will only have a short-term impact of increase, but in the long run, it will probably result in a collapse of different sectors and overall decline in their revenue.
Absolutely, and pissed off 190 as well.
Yes.
Mheshimiwa Alex Kosgey, MP Emgwen in Nandi County, number 029. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. So you guys are in recess. When do you get back?
We usually have to.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for being a part of the show, and thanks so much for your questions, folks. Keep it coming at Queen Jeff at hot_96 Kenya with the hashtag Jeff in the morning. Mheshimiwa, we urge you, get a Twitter handle.